Okay. I believe we should go ahead and get started. I'm going to first do this. So how's everyone's Monday going? I keep thinking it's like Sunday. It's not. It's Monday. How's everybody's Monday going? How's everyone doing? I know it's a bit late for me to start streaming, but I wanted to go ahead and at least get something started. But hope everybody's doing well. How is everyone doing today? Anyone doing anything happening during the weekend? My weekend was pretty uneventful. My weekend was pretty uneventful. How's everybody doing today? I don't actually remember what I set up the ads to be. I actually don't remember at all. I'll have to take a look at them again. Excuse me. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of throw my thoughts out on just the Pathfinder 1st Edition. We're only going to be discussing the core rulebook today because there are a lot of books. We could also just go all the way back to like 3.5 and figure out what it is we could discuss there too. But that would just not make a very good stream, nor would it be really useful for having all that information. So we're instead just going to look at the core rulebook. This might actually get cut up into a few videos and actually be posted on my YouTube channel. I don't actually know just yet. But I want to at least get some of my thoughts out as to why I generally play Pathfinder 1st Edition over playing, say, 5th Edition or anything else. And honestly, there are flaws with Pathfinder 1st Edition. I'm not going to say that there is anything inherently good about Pathfinder 1st Edition. It's the system that I have the most experience with, and it's the system that I have played for nearly 15 years at this point. I think. I've been playing this since, like, what, 2011? No, 13 years. That would be 13 years. No, it would be 2010, so 15 years at this point. So I have a lot of experience with Pathfinder 1st Edition. I also have a lot of experience just optimizing the ever-living crap out of this game and realizing that this game can be heavily and easily done. And I'm going to show you some of the things about this system. We're not going to go to the Archives of Nethys website because the Archives of Nethys website will actually probably just confuse the ever-living crap out of you. We at least want to get through the core rulebook first before we go into any of the extra stuff that's in the Archives of Nethys. Because Archives of Nethys has everything about Pathfinder 1st Edition. We will be going to that website at some point, but not this stream. When it comes to some of the classes, later classes, I'm going to do that. But all the rules and such you can look up on Archives of Nethys. And I will actually give that website in the description of the video when I decide to actually make this a video. So it will be in the description. Make sure it also has everything for Starfinder and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And it likely will get everything for Starfinder 2nd Edition once that system officially releases. But I do hope that everyone is having well. I do know that everyone who got the notification for my Twitch was wrong. Sorry about that. I didn't check to see if anything was actually fixed before all of that happened. So I am sorry about that. But this is likely going to be a little bit of a short stream. This probably will not be a very long stream. But I just want to go ahead and just get my thoughts on all of this, and so that you guys can understand what it is that how I kind of go through, make characters and all that. I usually just end up using Archives of Nethys, but we're going to go ahead and make a character based on one of just the core rulebook, and we'll just go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and swap over screens real quick So this is the Pathfinder core rulebook. As you can see, Pathfinder core rulebook. This is actually the 5th printing of the core rulebook, so this one has all the erratas in it. It doesn't have everything that's fixed in it. There is a whole bunch of stuff that's been fixed into it, but not everything. So let's go ahead and just look at the tables of contents. We've, of course, got Chapter 1, getting started. This is pretty much where we're going to start, and we're pretty much going to go over common terms and generating characters and ability scores. And if I feel like it will actually... I don't care, Adobe. We'll go ahead and get into races and classes, and I might end up getting a skills, feats, and some of these additional stuff that's in here. Do note that after chapter... We may not get anything after Chapter 12. I will try to see if I can get anything before everything up to Chapter 11. You may be wondering, what's a prestige class? Well, we'll get to that when we get there. First, let's go ahead and go over common terms. So I'm going to go ahead and go to common terms, and we'll be... Oh, actually, I recognize that picture. I know where that's from. I'm going to go ahead and check common terms, and we're going to go over some common terms before we do anything, because it's kind of required to know what our terms are before we do anything. So common terms. We will go over ability score. Of course, ability score is your 6 base ability scores of strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. There are very few things that increase this, but that is. Action. An action is discrete measurement of time during a round of combat, using abilities, casting spells, and making attacks. All require actions to perform. There are a number of different kinds of actions, such as standard, move, swift, free, and full round actions. This will be explained further in Chapter 8. Alignment. Very important. Alignment is literally just your lawful, neutral, or chaotic, or your good, neutral, and evil. It's broken up in 2 parts. Armor class, shorthand for AC. If you've played... apparently a single N denotes neutrality. I usually use TN for true neutral, but I actually did not know it was just N. But armor class, AC, this is the number you need to be if you roll an attack roll. And of course, the bigger it is, the better. Base attack bonus, shorthand BAB. This is your character's number that you add to most attack rolls. This includes swinging with a sword, using a bow, anything like that. As well as it gives when a character reaches a specific number, where you'll get an extra attack when you make a full attack action. We will get into what all of these actions do, what does this number mean, and all that other stuff. Bonuses are, of course, bonuses, and usually bonuses of the same type do not stack, such as a resistance bonus does not stack. We'll get into what resistance bonuses generally do, but a good example is an enhancement bonus. Usually does not stack with an enhancement bonus. You generally take the bigger of the 2. There is an exception to this. Caster level, shorthanded to CL. Caster level just represents the ability to overcome certain things with your spells. Class, of course, it's your class. Check. Do note that this game uses checks rather than tests or anything like that. So you roll a d20, add some stuff. There are attack rolls, skill checks, ability checks, and saving throws, which are the most common types. Combat maneuver, something you guys have probably never seen. This is it. This is the thing. This is things like tripping, disarming, grappling, stuff like that. I will get into what grappling is later. Grappling is very complex and very convoluted. Combat maneuver bonus, shorthand CMB. This value represents how skilled a character is at performing a combat maneuver, such as bull rushing, disarming, tripping. That's what it is. Combat maneuver defense, shorthanded to CMD. This is your combat maneuver defense. This is the thing that you will be Actually, you know what? I just realized I should probably fit this to width so that you guys can actually read this. Because I just realized you guys probably kind of read this the entire time. So that's my bad. This pretty much is how hard is it to perform a combat maneuver against you. Concentration check, something that I don't think 5th edition actually has. They have concentration, but they don't have concentration checks. Concentration checks depicts if you can cast a spell or not, depending on environment. Creature just depicts the PCs, NPCs, and monsters. Damage reduction, something that probably, or DR for short. Damage reduction is very different because I believe in 5th edition, this is the main thing that I'm going to be comparing it to because that's the most common system in the game, or in right now. I believe it's just called resistances, and usually a resistance is half damage. In Pathfinder 1st edition, damage reduction is you subtract that amount of points unless it has a bypass, which the bypass is usually on the right-hand side, such as a creature has DR10 / cold iron, which means that it will subtract 10 damage from anything that is not cold iron. And if it has nothing such DR is, if it doesn't have, if it applies to all, do not, this is only on physical attacks. DR is denoted by the a hyphen, which appendix one will, if I probably won't get there. Difficulty class, also known as DC. Whenever a creature attempts to perform an action whose success is not guaranteed, he must make some sort of check, usually a skill check. DC is also used for other things. Extraordinary abilities, EX, which are just abilities that do not rely on magic to function. These are things like swinging a sword, stuff like that. Swinging a sword, most class abilities for specific classes are considered EX. There are a lot of abilities that are actually considered something else, but we get into those. Experience points, shorthanded to XP. You get XP whenever you defeat monsters, challenges, and complete quests. So, a feat. Now, in 5th edition, I believe feats are something that you get from ability score improvements, or you can get a feat, which I believe ability score improvement is now just a feat, which makes more sense that ability score improvement would just be a feat that you would take, and you just get feats at that level. A feat is an ability a creature has mastered. Feats often allow creatures to circumvent rules or restrictions. Creatures receive a number of feats based off their hit dice, but some classes and other abilities guarantee bonus feats. So that's just saying anything. Of course, this game does not use Dungeon Master. This game uses Game Master or GM. Of course, the GM has the same role as the Dungeon Master in 5th edition. Hit dice, or HD. This just represents the general power of characters and your level. Most PCs are going to have this equal to their level. There are some random ones that don't, but yeah. Hit points, HP, how healthy your character is, and other stuff. Initiative, level, you guys probably already know all of this, but initiative is what you roll when combat begins. Level, character's level is represent his overall ability and power. There are 3 types of level. Class level. There's class level. Let's see here. There's class level, caster level, and hit die level, I believe, or monster level. Is that right? 3 types of levels. Class levels, the number of levels specific class you possess. Character level, and then spell. Oh yeah, character level, which is your overall plus, and then there's spellcaster level or spell level. Spells have a level associated with them, number of 0 to 9. So yeah, spell level. Monsters. They're monsters. They generally are. They're generally NPCs. It also states PCs are usually not monsters, which is not always the case. You can actually play monsters. There are ways to do it. Multiplying. Critical hits aren't always on a multiplication of just ×2. Sometimes you can roll up to ×3 or ×4. If you're asked to multiply a ×2 multiplier twice, the result would be ×3, not ×4. Yeah. So, yeah. Non-player character, NPC. Penalties. Penalties are numerical values. Player characters, character or PC. Characters portrayed by the players. Round, measured in how combat is measured. Rounding, which is usually how things are rounded. Everything is usually rounded down. There are very few things that are rounded up unless stated otherwise. So general rule, everything's rounded down. Which means half of 7 is a 3, not 3.5. Saving throws. Generally, we know what saving throws are if you've played 5th edition. If not, then your saving throws are things that you save to resist things. Resist spells, abilities, magic items, and magic in general. But there are only 3, unlike in 5th edition 6. There's Fortitude, which resists poison, disease, and other bodily ailments. Reflex, which is used to avoid effects that target in an area, such as Fireball. And then Will, it's used to resist mental attacks and spells. Skill represents a character's ability to perform an ordinary task. Climb a wall, sneak down a hallway, spot an intruder. Those are all things that a skill would provide. There's also a crap ton more skills in the game. Spells, everyone knows what spells are. They do magical things, and they can harm enemies to bring back the dead. Spell-like abilities. I believe in 5th edition, these are called inherent spells, or spells tied to a race. Usually, you do not get spell-like abilities via your class. Usually, you get spell-like abilities based off of your race. There are some classes that do get spell-like abilities, and there are some races that give spell-like abilities and some that don't. I don't think any in the core rulebook do. Do ignore everything on the right-hand side. That is just an example of how combat works. Spells which are gained by spell class level as character gains levels. Yeah. Spell resistance, which I believe in 5th edition, spell resistance is not in. It just effectively means it's a DC or effectively AC for spells. You have to roll a caster level check and overcome the SR. A lot of spells allow spell resistance. Stacking resistance at the end of the day. Bonus that apply to one particular check. Generally speaking, most of the bonus same type do not stack. Instead of only the highest bonus applies. Most bonuses do stack, meaning that their values are added together. Penalties and bonuses generally stack with one another, meaning that the penalties might negate or exceed part of all bonuses and vice versa. Supernatural abilities, also shorthand for SU. Very few abilities are actually supernatural. Well, actually, I take that back. A lot of classes do get supernatural abilities. A common one is the Cleric's Channel Energy. Generally, supernatural abilities do not provoke attacks of opportunity. And a turn is in a round of combat, a creature receives 1 turn, during which it can perform a wide variety of tasks. Generally, in the course of 1 turn, a character can perform 1 standard action, 1 move action, 1 swift action, and a number of free actions. Less common combinations of actions are permissible as well. Chapter 8 will give more. This is an example of play. I am not going to read the example of play because I generally think that you guys know how to play a tabletop role-playing game. But we're going to go over... But that is everything for our common terms. And things will probably get a little bit easier when we start talking about what some of these when these are more relevant during the game. We're going to go ahead and start generating a character. I sadly do not have a character sheet on me, but I believe I can go ahead and pull up a character sheet real quick. So let me go ahead and get that ready, and we'll go ahead and pull up a character sheet. Just so that I can keep things together, but I'm not going to have you guys kind of see me create a character in many ways. Many of these are kind of subject to GM discretion. So you can technically play just about anything. And it really kind of depends on first what your concept is going to be. I do like this as like a general way of doing things, but sometimes it's not that easy to kind of figure out what it is you want to play until you kind of give an idea. It's why technically I would say step 1, 2, and 3 kind of can be in any interchangeable order, because you kind of need step 1, 2, and 3 before you can do 4, 5, or 6. Well, 4 or 5, effectively, because kind of just depends on what you're playing if you want anything to actually work or not. Give me one moment. I misspelled that. There we go. Well, yeah. So that's pretty much everything. We will determine our ability scores, but I think first would actually be more appropriate to pick our class. So we'll actually do all of this later. We'll actually do all this later, but I will go over the step 1, determining ability scores, the different methods you can do for ability scores. So generating ability scores. There's standard, which is the 4d6 drop the lowest, which generally results in a number between 3 and 18, with some, like the average being about 12 being the appropriate. There is classic, which is just 3d6 down the line, which is not necessarily the best option. This meta is less random than classic and tends to create characters with above average ability scores. Heroic is roll d2 and then add 6 to the sum. I've never actually used this one. I'm not gonna lie. It generates between 8 and 18, which is of course much higher. There's then dice pool. I've never used dice pool. This one's like this one's one that I've never used. Now, the most common one that you're going to see that people probably end up using is purchase. This one's the one that is always used for Pathfinder Society play. At least when first edition was only available for Pathfinder Society. Now everyone runs second edition for Society play. And it really just depends on how many average non-player characters are typically built using as few as 3 points, which is not a lot. And then if we go to table 1-1, which I don't even know if table 1-1. Oh yeah, here's table 1-1. So table 1-1 isn't really anything because I think these are the total amount of points that are used. Yeah, these are the total amount of points that are used, and usually we end up playing with a high fantasy game because Golarion is the world of Golarion, which is where Pathfinder technically takes place, is considered a high fantasy world. I think at first it was considered a standard fantasy world, but now it's kind of high fantasy. There's also no epic fantasy, which I'm okay with. But yeah, we could easily go over like what strength and dex and con and all that. And there's this huge table, which this table will come in handy later. This table really only dictates like when you're casting spells, and honestly, the number that you usually can only get to is about here. So if you optimize your gameplay enough, this is the number that you could easily get to. If you're lucky and your GM is nice to you. It's more than likely going to probably be somewhere like here range. Or even here. And even here is not too bad. I would say, like, if you really wanted to just be nice, having a 28 or 29 is probably the minimum that you're going to see your character number at, or 30, which is probably the next highest one, which might be nice. It's 30 to 31. So this is probably the typical location you're going to see your characters hit die at. There is technically one other method that's not introduced in this one. And it's the array style. There is an array that you can use for NPCs that you can also give to your players. There's like NPC arrays, which are generally used, and then there's the heroic NPC stat block that you could give players. I don't actually know what their point buys are because I've never effectively used them, and I haven't done the math on them. I believe that one's 15 and one's probably 20, based off of a few things. But of course, strength is based off of is melee attack rolls, damage rolls using melee weapons or thrown weapons, including a sling. Do note there is an exception here. Offhand weapons usually take half strength, so yes, you can 2-weapon fight in this game. It's also used for only 2 skills, which is climb and strength. It's climb and swim, and yes, those are skills. Also, 2-handed attacks receive 1.2. One receives a much higher bonus, and as well, strength penalty, but not a bonus applies to attack made with a bow that is not a composite bow. So, of course, dex is used for ranged attacks, such as bows, crossbows, throwing axes, and many ranged spells. Attacks like Scorching Ray or Searing Light Yes, you do not get to apply your intelligence modifier to your attacks with raise. But also there's a few other things that this book hasn't actually gone over just yet. There's armor class. Dex is based off of it, gives an increase to your armor class, and even having just a +1 Dex applies no matter what armor you're in, except for like 1 armor. But having just a +1 Dex in your armor for your armor class is always useful. So you really want to try to at least get a 12 or a 13 in your Dex if you really want to have a really high AC. It's also used for reflex saving throws so easier to avoid those fireballs. And these are all the skills that Dex kind of applies to, which is acrobatics, disable device, escape artist, fly, ride, sleight of hand, and stealth. Hey, uber awesome. These are like only a few of the skills. There's a lot of skills in this game, and I will go over more. Con, generally it's for fortitude saves and HP, and that's about it. It also dictates when a character dies. A character dies when they get to negative their constitution score. I believe it's negative their constitution score. It could be negative double their constitution score. I think it's negative single. Intelligence is actually more important. Intelligence, your character needs a 3 or higher intelligence to understand speech. Character with intelligence score of 0 is comatose. If you have an intelligence of 1 or 2, you're considered an animal intelligence. And some creatures actually do not possess an intelligence score. They're very rare. They're modifiers plus 0 for any intelligence skills or checks, which is neither here nor there. Intelligence is probably the most important for the class like the wizard, which of course is the more important, the thing that everyone's kind of wondering. Yes, the wizard exists. You also get like a number of bonus languages as well as the number of skill points for each level. So of all that, it's as well as used for like 5. Well, there's like a few skills. There's a lot of skills that it's used for. All the knowledge skills and such. Wisdom, will saving throws, important for clerics, druids, and rangers for spells. And it's useful for heal, perception, profession, sense motive, and survival checks. Charisma is, of course, your face skill. It's also, charisma is a measure of your unnatural life force as well for undead creatures. Every creature has a charisma score. Character with a charisma score of 0 is not able to exert himself in any. So if your ability reaches 0, 90% of the time you are considered unconscious or comatose, which is just you're unconscious effectively. And except for the exception of con. Of course, you can bluff, diplomatize, disguise, handle animals, intimidate, perform, and use a magic device. Yes, handle animal in here is a charisma-based skill. It is not wisdom-based. And you may be wondering what some of these skills do. We'll get into that. Don't worry. We'll get into that. It's also used for the DC of a cleric and paladin's channel energy, as well as this spellcasting stat for bards, paladins, and sorcerers. As effectively, you may be wondering, well, we've gone over all the classes. Where's Warlock? Warlock does not exist in this game. Warlock does not exist in 5th edition. Or in Pathfinder 1st edition. Exists in 5th edition, does not exist in Pathfinder 1st edition. And I think there is a class that exists, but it is very much different than others. Races! Of course, here are the races. We have Dwarf, Halfling, Half, Human, Gnome, Half-Orc, and Half-Elf. Generally, you can probably assume that they've... Hey, Dran, how you doing? Races actually give bonuses to specific things, which includes Constitution, Wisdom, but they also take a penalty to Charisma. Now, you may be wondering, Brave, why do they get a penalty? This is like what used to happen in Stressed Out, but I won't get into it. And I mean, this is technically what happened in 3.5. 3.5 actually gave bonuses, and Pathfinder 1st edition is effectively 3.5 plus. I think in 3.5, Dwarves got a bonus to Constitution, a penalty to Charisma, but didn't get this bonus to Wisdom. Pathfinder gave them a bonus to Wisdom. Dwarves, of course, have a whole bunch of stuff that you're probably used to. They have Dark Vision. You may be noticing this +4 dodge bonus AC against a humanoid giant subtype. That's normal. +2 against appraisal skill. They actually get a bonus against orcs and goblinoids to attack. They're very good at resisting poison spells and spell-like abilities. They actually have a higher... They cannot... They're much harder to bull rush or trip. They also get a +2 percentage bonus to unusual stonework, as well as other things. Dwarves are automatically proficient with battle axes, heavy picks, and warhammers. They treat any weapon with the word dwarven in it as a martial weapon. They speak Common and Dwarven, and of course, they can speak other languages with a high enough intelligence score. Okay. Elves. Bog standard elves. You know, you may be boring. Brave. Where are my wood elves? My other elf types. There's no other elf type. You just have elf. Your elf is effectively just gets these bonuses. They have low light vision, and you may be wondering what's low light. Well, low light is before dark vision. Elves do not have dark vision in Pathfinder 1st edition. Elves are also usually better as being casters. They're kind of your default, I want to play a wizard class. There's also proficiency. They're also proficient with longbows and short bows, longswords, and rapiers, as well as the composite variations. And of course, they treat Elven in its name as a martial weapon, and all this stuff, and a +2 racial bonus of perception skill checks, which means that, I believe in 5th edition, elves get perception as a proficient skill. This one just gives them a +2 bonus. Gnomes. Everyone loves our little gnomes. They have... Then these are the ability scores. Sadly, I really can't stay on these screens for very long just because of how they made this book. But mainly because I just don't want to accidentally get flagged by the Twitch's like stuff. But now you'll notice on the half elf, which is something that a lot of people probably have been wondering. Half elves get a +2 to 1 ability score, which effectively means that they're kind of instead of like, I believe in half elves get like a +2 to charisma and a +1 to 2 other stats in the original, like 2014. But stats are technically based off of your race rather than your background if you're playing the 2024 version. Half-elves have low light vision. Half-elves get the skill focus bonus feat, which if you're wondering what that feat does, we'll get into it. Half-elves are both elves and humans for any effect related to race. There are other things. Might go lay down? Probably the best idea is to go lay down. Half-elves and elves are immune to magical sleep effects and gain the +2 racial bonus saving throw against enchantment spells and effects. I think in 5th edition, elves and half-elves are immune to magical sleep and get advantage on like charm-based spells. I don't really know. They get half-elves have the keen senses, multi-talented, choose 2 favorite classes. We'll get into what the favorite class means. It effectively usually is the first class you pick, but it doesn't have to be. Half-elves, of course, speak Common and Elven, and they can speak any language after that. There's, of course, the half-orc, which is, like the half-elf, gets the +2 bonus to anything, their normal speed. They're considered medium, which, if you notice, the gnome was considered small, which actually gave a bonus instead. So, half-orc gets 60 feet of dark vision. So, look, half-orcs get dark vision. Half-orcs are very intimidating. They get a +2 bonus to intimidate. They're considered humans and orcs for their related to race. Do note, this is also assuming that half-orcs aren't like... Half-orcs and half-elves are considered to be human in this. Your GM could likely allow you to change the orc blood to half-orcs both to change like elf or dwarf, although those races would likely be very hard for this to actually happen. Effectively, orc ferocity, I don't know. I do know that this, I think there's a similar thing to this in 5th edition, but half-orcs have the ability to literally stay in the fight for at least one more round before falling unconscious. Half-orcs are proficient with great axes and falchions, as well as use orcs as martial weapons. Gnomes, I actually don't remember what gnomes get. Hang on, what do gnomes get? Gnomes just treat any gnome as a martial weapon, and they also get like a few other things in here. And we'll go to size. You'll see small, they get a +1 size bonus to AC and attack rolls, and a penalty to combat maneuver and combat defense, and +4 size bonus to stealth checks. So being small was actually kind of useful back in Pathfinder 1st edition, and effectively 3.5. We got halflings. They're small. They also get a +2 bonus to dexterity, charisma, and a -2 to strength. Halfling luck just for a please of rush 1 racial bonus on all saves, +2 racial bonus on perception checks, acrobatics and climb. They're effectively your default rogues. They also get a +2 racial bonus against fear effects. This bonus stacks with the bonus granted by halfling luck. So that's like they actually get a +3 bonus to fear effects, which is actually really good. Halflings are proficient with slings and treat any weapon with the word halfling in it as a martial weapon. The only issue with slings, I think all slings are considered simple weapons. So all classes except for one class gets proficiency with slings. Human, bog standard human, +2 to any ability score. They do get an extra feat, which if you're played 5th edition, you're like, oh my god, this is just variant human. Technically, yes. They also get an additional skill rank. That's it. They're medium, and they get a bonus of 30 feet, and they can speak any language except for secret languages, like Druidic, which is actually its own secret language in Pathfinder 1st edition. Alrighty. Classes! What everybody's been waiting for. This is about character advancement. As you can see, every character starts off with a feat at 1st level. Not including any racial bonus feats or class bonus feats that you might gain. You'll notice that there's an ability score over here. That is when you get a +1 to your ability score. And your classes, of course, are Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Wizard. So, bog standard. The only thing that's missing out of this is the Warlock, which is fine. Pathfinder 1st edition didn't have the Warlock, and they have a different class that is kind of Warlock themed. Not necessarily the same as Warlock, but Warlock themed. Let's see here. Just checking some things. Let's see here. You can multi-class and all that other stuff. Process of advancing a character works in much the same way as generating a character, except their ability score, race, and previous character choices don't matter. Or do matter, kind of. So this is effectively the core rulebook, and this is the way that people used to level up in games. It used to be either we're on slow, which was 300 experience, 2,000 experience, or 1,300 experience. If you notice, experience for 1st to 2nd level, even on the fast setting, is very low. Or very high compared to 5th edition, which I think is only like 300 experience. I'd have to double check, but I'm not going to. And then this is when we get into favorite class. Effectively, whenever you pick the favorite class, typically it's the same class as the one he chooses at 1st level. Does not have to be. You get a +1 hit point or a +1 skill rank. Most people just pick the hit point. Just because surviving is better. There's also prestige classes that can never be a favorite class. There is a feat for that, but that's later down the line. So yeah. That is effectively everything that you really need to know on, like, at least at first generating a character. And then, but we're going to go ahead and get into Barbarian. We're just going to go over the role a Barbarian generally falls under. This is actually Amari. This is the iconic barbarian. She is the iconic barbarian. Barbarians excel in combat, possessing the martial prowess and fortitude to take on foes seemingly far superior to themselves, with rage granting them boldness and daring beyond that of most other warriors. Barbarians charge furiously into battle and ruin all who would stand in their way. They cannot be lawful. Alignment is actually important in this game. You cannot be a lawful something barbarian. And these are their class skills, which is acrobatics, climb, craft, handle animal, intimidate, knowledge, nature. If you notice, knowledge is very different. Perception, ride, survival, and swim. And they get 4+ intelligence modifier on skill ranks. Let's kind of go back up real quick. All barbarians are proficient with simple and martial weapons, light armor, medium armor, and shields. Now you may be wondering, we're going to get to it in here in a moment. We're not done with the first level abilities. Fast movement, extraordinary ability, which means this works no matter what, as long as you have 1 level barbarian. Or as long as you're not doing one of these other 4 things that, as long as these conditions are met. Barbarian's base speed is faster than the norm for her race by plus 10 feet. This bonus applies only when she is wearing no armor, light armor, or medium armor and not carrying a heavy load. Apply this bonus before modifying the barbarian's speed because of any load carried or warmer worn. This bonus stacks with any other bonuses to the barbarian's base speed. This is not an enhancement bonus. This is in a stackable bonus. You'll wonder why, if you're wondering why this text is here, it's because there are some spells that actually increase your movement speed, like haste. And then you'll notice there's a whole bunch of stuff here. This is actually everything that a barbarian gets from 1st to 20th level. And you'll notice that base attack bonus goes all the way up to 20, as well as these bonuses go up to 12 and 6 and 6, which means these are so effectively what this means is that a fortitude is good at resisting fortitude-based effects, but poor at resisting reflex and will-based effects, as well as by 16th level has access to 4 attacks as a full round action without having to haste or anything like that. Very different from 5th edition's attack economy, where fighter's the only one that actually gets 4 attacks. Nope. Any class that has a base attack bonus of +1 at 1st level generally will have a +20 all the way up to 20th level. Effectively, they get 4 attacks on a single full round action. I know this is a lot, but there's all that. So, Barbarian gets fast movement and rage. Rage is the general standard. Rage does what rage does, except it doesn't work the same way. There's also rage powers, uncanny dodge, and all these other stuff that you'll probably wonder, what does all this mean? I would honestly say read it for yourself if I'm going a bit too quickly for it. But rage, the extraordinary ability, the main class feature for barbarians. Our barbarian can call upon inner reserves of strength and ferocity, granting her do note they're using the iconics for the gender terms, granting her additional combat prowess. Starting at 1st level, a barbarian can rage for a number of rounds per day equal to 4 plus her constitution modifier. It's not 1 minute. It's 4 plus her constitution modifier. At each level after 1st, she can rage for 2 additional rounds. So effectively, a barbarian has 2 times per level plus 2 plus con mod. So that's effectively how that number works. Temporary increases to constitution, such as those gained from rage and spells like Bear's Endurance, do not increase the total number of rounds that a barbarian can rage per day. A barbarian can enter rage as a free action. The total number of rounds, so it's not a bonus action, it's a free or a swift action, it's a free action. The total number of rounds of rage per day is renewed after resting for 8 hours, although these hours do not need to be consecutive. So what do you get when you rage? Well, you get a +4 morale bonus to strength and constitution, as well as a +2 morale bonus on will saves. You do take a penalty to your armor class, and this increase to constitution grants the barbarian 2 hit points per hit dice, but these disappear when the rage ends and are not lost first like temporary hit points, which effectively means that if you go unconscious, you're effectively dead when you rage. So it's not great. While in rage, barbarian cannot use any charisma, dexterity, intelligence-based skills except for acrobatics, fly, intimidate, and ride, or any ability that requires patience or concentration, which effectively means you can't cast spells, because spells require patience and concentration. Barbarian can enter rage as a free action in his fatigue. You may be wondering, what is fatigue? We'll get to it. After rage for a number of rounds equal to 2 times the number of rounds spent in the rage. This effectively just means that if you spent 1 round raging, you are fatigued for 2 rounds. If you were If you're in 2 rounds, you get 4. 3 rounds, 6. I think they kind of fixed rage in a different book, but we'll see what we'll get there when we get there. A barbarian cannot enter a new rage while fatigued or exhausted. Do note that this says exhausted. Oh, we went too far. Back. Is it gonna let me go back? Nope. I gotta go all the way back to barbarian. Do I have bookmarks in here? I do. Back to classes. Barbarian. Okay. Go ahead and close that and then get this back to fit to width. Okay. Gotta make sure not to accidentally click these things. But, so the PDF is actually very useful because you can actually click what these things mean. But can otherwise enter rage multiple times during a single encounter or combat. If the barbarian falls unconscious, her rage immediately ends, placing her in peril of death. So, yeah. Rage powers. This is something she starts getting at 2nd level. Barbarian gains level. She learns to use her rage in new ways, which effectively means that most of these rage powers you can only use while raging and only affects that rage. And usually many of these effects are only once per rage. Like there's Animal Fury. While raging, you get a bite attack. Clear Mind, you can roll any will saves. Do note some of these have a level requirement, which means that you must be at least this level in Barbarian to take these. There's Fearless Rage. And a lot of these are just like things that you'll need to look up and see if there's anything that you would really want to take. Excuse me. So yeah. And many of these are actually very useful, and I would probably go into more of these, but I've got a lot of classes to go over before going over any of these. There's Uncanny Dodge, which just effectively means that a barbarian cannot be caught flat-footed. You may be wondering, what's flat-footed? We'll get to it when we get to it. Nor does she lose her dexterity bonus to AC if the attacker is invisible. Look at that. No bonuses for an invisible attacker. She'll lose her dexterity bonuses if immobilized, such as hold person or something like that. You're a Magus? Hey, Shade, how you doing? We're just going over the core rulebook today. Shh, don't talk about Magus yet. We're not there. I won't be talking about Magus today. One, I also don't have easy access to Ultimate Combat, but I'll be going over some more things and all that. I'm mainly just going over like the classes. I don't think we're gonna get into any of the GM stuff today. And this might be a long video, and I might be able to cut this up in a few different videos. This one is ad breaks will be paused through. Before I forget, ad breaks will be paused through for this stream. If an ad break happens on Twitch, I will be pausing stream for that amount of time. So do not worry. You will not miss a thing. And of course, there's other effects in here. But yeah. How you doing, Shade? How's your day? How's your Monday going? While we pause on Barbarian real quick. How's your Monday been? Probably exhausting. I work now. I'm going to go. Okay. Alrighty. Well, back to the book real quick. Barbarian with this ability can still lose her dexterity bonus to AC if any opponent successfully uses the feint action against her. That's usually how that functions. Trap Sense. A barbarian effectively just gets a bonus to avoid traps and avoid traps easier. Improved Uncanny Dodge is effectively just means that a barbarian can no longer be flanked and effectively denies a rogue sneak attack. And this effectively just guarantees immunity to being flanked. So no one gets a plus 2 gets a bonus against you for flanking and all that other stuff. Damage reduction. We know what damage reduction does, and a barbarian actually gets 1 point of it every level. At 7th and then at 10th level and every 3 levels thereafter. So effectively, starting from 7th and every 3 levels thereafter, you get a bonus to your damage reduction. Greater Rage just increases the bonuses to your morale bonuses, effectively tripling them. Or no. Increasing them by 1/3. There's Indomitable Will, which effectively just gives you a massive bonus against enchantment spells. This bonus stacks with all other modifiers, including the morale bonus. This is also while in Rage. So Rage effectively gives you like a plus, at this level, +7 to your will save. So your will save is actually not that bad against enchantment spells. Tireless Rage, you can actually still rage while you no longer become fatigued after raging, so you can effectively rage cycle, as many people call it. And then Mighty Rage, which just increases it by an additional 2 points, and then +4. You lose your Barbarian if you become lawful somehow. This is really only going to be beneficial if you're playing something like in a campaign where your alignment is subject to change based off of the actions that you take. Do note that I know a lot of people have probably been wondering, hey, what about Wrath of the Righteous content? Wrath of the Righteous effectively uses some of this stuff, but Wrath of the Righteous is also not the best example of tabletop version of Pathfinder 1st Edition. So there's that. There's Bard, and what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and pause, because I know for certain that we're actually about to get hit by the ad. So I forgot to move that down. So we're about to get hit by the ad, and I'm going to go ahead and pause and just kind of sit here and say, Barbarian is a class I will go ahead and mention. Barbarian is a class I have not played an extensive amount of just yet. The only reason why I haven't played Barbarian extensively is because I haven't found a build that I enjoy in Barbarian, except for like 1 or 2. And many of those builds sometimes just don't work out in specific campaigns. And there's a lot of builds you can do for Barbarian. Barbarian can technically, in Pathfinder 1st Edition, actually be a very good, effective defender. One that can take a lot of hits. There are some ways to change the class and all that to where it'll actually function how you want it to. And I could see actually playing a very tanky Barbarian in the effect of like taking less damage, which is really the main thing you want your Barbarian to be doing, is taking less damage anyway. Because Barbarians generally have a very low AC due to rage mechanics and all that, so they generally have a lower AC than average, but they generally have higher hit points to compensate. Unlike 5th Edition's Barbarian, where you rage, you get a small bonus to your damage, and you become resistant and you take half damage. Barbarians don't get half damage starting at 1st level. They effectively don't get half damage at all. There are some things that allow you to take half damage. There are some things to change the class. And you may be wondering, where are the archetypes? Where are the subclasses? I'm like, there are no subclasses in Pathfinder 1st Edition. Your subclasses do not exist. You effectively, depending on how you build your character, is effectively how you make a subclass. Such as, like, playing a Barbarian, you can use a 2-handed weapon. You can technically play a Barbarian and use 2 one-handed weapons if you want to. It's not that effective. You could go sword and shield with a Barbarian. Not necessarily a bad thing to do. Many people tend to play their Barbarians with huge 2-handed weapons or big 2-handed weapons. So use the big stick to hit things real good is usually how people play their Barbarians. I generally like to have a little bit more substance when it comes to my classes, but Barbarian is pretty simple to play. It's probably one of the easiest classes to play in the game. You just get up into melee, rage, done. There is no... Barbarians could technically be ranged, but I don't think Barbarian is really the most appropriate. You can make a ranged Barbarian. It's not like you can't make a ranged Barbarian. I'm not going to, like, state that you can't make a ranged Barbarian. But Barbarian is generally typically associated with strength because the morale bonus increases strength and constitution. Do note that Barbarians do have the painful thing that at higher levels, you effectively, if you ever fall below 0 hit points, you fall unconscious and you effectively just die outright just because of how much damage you're taking. Which is a criticism of Barbarian's original concept. Barbarian has this problem. It will always have this problem. Of course, Barbarian's a D12 hit die class, and it's like, well, I'm not likely to go unconscious. Depending on what things do, you might go unconscious, because it's not hard to go unconscious as a barbarian, but it's also not easy to go unconscious as a barbarian. But yeah, I'll think about some other things about barbarian, but there are ways to build barbarian. Some of them are pretty cool, some of them are pretty neat, some of them aren't. But we're about to have an ad break, so I will go ahead and pause the stream, and we'll be back once the ad break is done. Alrighty. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome back from jail. Alrighty. So, I believe that we just finished the Barbarian, and now we're going to go over the Bard. Bard, their role is Bards capably confuse and confound their foes while inspiring their allies to ever greater daring. While accomplished with both weapons and magic, the true strength of Bard lies outside melee, where they can support their companions and undermine their foes without fear of interruptions to their performance. Bards can be any alignment. They have a D8 hit die, which is roughly normal. There's a whole bunch of skills they get access to. They get 6+ intelligence modifier on skills, which effectively means they're effectively skill monkeys. But they have a lot of skills, and you're probably not even you're gonna have to specialize in some of these. There's no way you really can do all of them. There's knowledge. There's a lot of knowledges, and we'll go over what each of the knowledges are once we get to skills. Bards are proficient with all simple weapons: long swords, rapiers, saps, which is a weapon that you guys have probably never seen, short swords, short bows, and whips. Bards are also proficient with light armor and shields, except tower shields. A bard can cast bard spells while wearing light armor and use a shield without incurring the normal arcane spell failure chance, which is effectively something that we haven't come across yet. Arcane spell failure only happens when you're wearing armor. It is not if you're proficient with it, you can cast spells in it. No, that does not exist in this game. Like any other arcane spellcaster, a bard wearing medium or heavy armor incurs a chance of arcane spell failure if the spell in question has a somatic component. A multi-class bard still incurs a normal arcane spell failure chance for arcane spells received from other classes. Spells: a bard's arcane spells drawn from the bard's spell list represented in Chapter 10. He can cast any spell he knows without preparing it ahead of time. Every bard spell has a verbal component: song, recitation, or music. To learn or cast a spell, a bard must have a charisma score equal to at least 10 plus the spell level. There is no you can have an 8 charisma bard and still cast your spells. No. You need at least 10 plus your spell level plus the spell level in order to cast spells. The difficulty for a saving throw against a bard spell is 10 plus the spell level plus the bard's charisma modifier, which is different. It is not just a flat bonus for all spells. Higher level spells have a harder chance to be resisted. Like other spellcasters, a bard can only cast a certain number of spells of each level per day. His base daily spell allotment is given on table 3.3. We'll look at table 3.3 here in a moment. In addition, he receives bonus spells if he has a high enough charisma, which is table 1.3. We saw that table earlier. This is one of the few classes that associates with that. The bard's selection of spells is extremely limited. A bard begins play knowing 4 0-level spells and 2 first-level spells of the bard's choice. At each new bard level, he gains 1 or more new spells, as indicated on table 3.4. Unlike spells per day, the number of spells bard knows is not affected by his charisma score. The numbers are fixed. Upon reaching 5th level and every 3rd level after that, a bard can choose to learn a new spell in place of one he already knows. In fact, the bard loses the spell, so effectively you can just change spells out. Not too bad. Bard need not prepare his spells in advance. He can cast any spell he knows at any time, assuming he has not yet used up his allotment of spells per day for the spell's level. Bardic Knowledge. Extraordinary. A bard adds half his class level, minimum 1, which effectively means you get a +1 score until level 4. To all knowledge skill checks and make all knowledge skill checks untrained. Now you may be wondering, what's untrained mean? Just means if you don't have a skill rank in it, you can't use it if it requires training. All knowledge skills require training, except for bards. Bards can make them without training. Bard is trained in the use of form skill to create magical effects on those around him, including himself if desired. He can use this ability for a number of rounds per day equal to 4 plus his charisma modifier, so effectively it's the same thing like the Barbarian's Rage. And he gets an additional 2 per round. So instead of like the just simple Bardic Inspiration where someone gets to add, what, a D6 or a D8 or a D10 or a D12 to their rolls at specific levels, and it's only 5 of them, you instead create a performance that instead does things. Bard cannot be disrupted, but it ends immediately if the Bard is killed, paralyzed, stunned, knocked unconscious, or otherwise prevented from taking a free action to maintain a round. Performance is required as a standard action. Bard cannot have more than one Bard performance in effect at one time. And here's the table. Now you may be wondering, why does a Bard only go up to 6th level? That's right. Bards are only a 6th level caster in Pathfinder 1st Edition. And that's pretty much it. Bards are good at reflex and will, are poor at fort. They also, if you notice, they don't start with a base attack bonus of +1. They instead get a +0, and it goes up by 1. This math roughly comes out to they go up to about 3/4 every level, and they only get to make 3 attacks by level 20. Sadly, they do not get to go up to the 16 range, so they only get to make 3 attacks per round as a full round action. Although as a bard, you're likely not going to be making attacks. At least not that commonly. And then you'll notice there's a whole bunch of performances stuff. We'll get into what all these performances are because they're in the performance sections. At 7th level, a bard can perform as a move action, and at 13th, it becomes a swift action, which effectively just means you can do both. Bard performance is audible, visual, or both components. If a bard's performance has audible components, the target must be able to hear the bard for the performance to have any effect, and as such, performances are language dependent. A deaf bard has a 20% chance to fail when attempting to use the bard performance. This is only if your character becomes deaf. If a bard has a visual component, the target must have line of sight to the bard for the performance to take any effect. A blind bard has a 50% chance to fail any attempt to use the bard with a visual component. That's if you become blinded, which is actually very important to remember if you actually become blinded, because blinded is very easy to forget about. Countersong, not the most powerful, but it effectively allows you to counter spells that have each one of the countersong. He makes a perform keyboard, percussion, wind, string, or sing skill check. Creature within 30 feet of the bard, including the bard himself, has the effect that is affected by a sonic or language dependent magical attack, may use the bard's performance skill check, result in place of its saving throw. After the saving throw is rolled, the perform check results proves to be higher. If a creature within range of this countersong is already under the effects of a non-instantaneous sonic or language dependent magical attack, it regains another saving throw against the effect each round. It hears the countersong, but it must use the bard's perform skill check result for the save. Countersong does not work on effects that don't allow saves. Countersong relies on audible components. Distraction. Effectively, you can fascinate targets, effectively distracting them. And instead of the normal DC, they can use the DC of the perform skill check as the DC for the saving throw. So far, I think each bard is technically supposed to use a different perform, even though I think in the actual rules they changed it to where you can use any perform later down the line. You can fascinate a target, which effectively means you can really distract a target. So yeah, and all these have special effects, but the main one that everyone's probably wondering about, Inspire Courage. Inspire Courage is probably the most useful out of all of the bard's performance abilities, and it's likely the 90% of the time the one thing you're going to be using, which effectively just gives a +1 competence bonus to all of your allies within that they can hear you or see you. So +1 to attack and damage. Nice. That's on all attacks and all damage rolls. Or weapon damage rolls, I should say. Which means that it sadly does not work on spells. Then there's Inspire Competence, which effectively means that you can give a bonus to people's skill checks. Certain use of the ability are infeasible, such as stealth, and may be disallowed at the GM's discretion. A bard can't inspire competence in himself. Inspire competence relies on audible components. There's Suggestion. You can effectively cast the Suggestion spell. Dirge of Doom, which I think you can automatically frighten or panic a target. Cannot cause a creature to become frightened. No, you can pretty much make every creature within 30 feet become shaken. Dirge of Doom is a mind affecting a fear effect, and it relies on audible and visual components. Inspire Greatness. You can pick one person to get a +2 confidence bonus on attack rolls and +1 confidence bonus on fortitude saves. They also get a bonus number of hit points. 2 bonus hit dice. The commensurate number of temporary hit points apply to the target's constitution modifier, if any. Greatness gains 2. Oh, you can actually do up to 4 targets at 18th level. If any, to these bonus hit dice, it's a 2+ confidence bonus on attack rolls and a +1 confidence bonus on saving throw on fortitude saves. Most hit dice counts as regular hit dice for determining the effects of spells that are hit dice dependent. Inspire Greatness is a mind affecting ability, and it relies on audible and visual components. So depending on how your GM rules how hit points work, you could effectively roll the 2 hit die, and you could have up to a maximum of 20 extra hit points. It's actually not that bad. Bard of 12th level or higher can you... Well, actually, I don't know. I think it just counts as you having 2 extra hit dice. Soothing Performance. I actually didn't realize this, but apparently can use this performance to create an effect equivalent to mass cure serious wounds using the Bard's level as the cash level. I actually didn't know this. You can also remove the sicken, shaken conditions from all of those effects. Using the ability requires 4 rounds of continuous performance, and the target must be able to see and hear the Bard throughout the performance. Soothing Performance affects all allies that remain within 30 feet through the performance. Soothing Performance relies on audible. This is probably one of those things that you use outside of combat. Yeah, I don't really see this being used inside of combat. Frightening Tune. Effectively, you can cast fear on a target and make them frightened. Target must frighten and flees for as long as the target can hear the Bardic performance. Inspire Heroics. Pick 1 person, I believe. Yeah, or you can choose yourself. Every 3 levels, the character obtains beyond 15th. He can inspire heroics in an additional creature. So effectively, for a single campaign, it's usually up to 2. 1 or 2, which is not great. What do you see and hear the Bard? Inspire creatures gain a +4 morale bonus on saving throws and a +4 dodge bonus to AC. Effect lasts for as long as the targets are able to witness the performance. Inspire heroics is a mind-affecting ability that relies on audible and visual components. Mass Suggestion, like Suggestion, except it's mass. You can target multiple creatures. Deadly Performance, you can effectively cause somebody to just die. Save or die. And I think it's a will save. It's a will save? Yeah, it's a will save, which actually could potentially... if a creature's saving throw succeeds, the target is staggered for 1d4 rounds, and if they fail, they just die. Deadly Performance is a mind-affecting death effect that relies on audible and visual components. Cantrips. A Bard learns a number of cantrips or 0-level spells based off of the spells known table. Did we see the spells known table? Yeah, here's the spells known table. Versatile Performance. This effectively allows you to use performance to replace 2 skills. And you get one at 6th level and every 4 levels thereafter, which is like 6th, 10th, 14th. So it's 2nd, 6th, 10th, 14th, and 18th. So effectively you can get 5 skills, and 5 of... I don't think there's any way to not overlap if you take 5 of these. Because you really don't want to accidentally overlap, but it's not like it's hard to not to. You can take things like Act, which gives you Bluff and Disguise, Comedy, which is Bluff and Intimidate, Dance, which is Acrobatics and Fly, Keyboard Instruments, Diplomacy and Intimidate, Oratory, Diplomacy and Sense Motive, Persuasion, which is Handle Animal and Intimidate, Sing, or Percussion, my bad. Handle Animal and Intimidate, Sing, Bluff and Sense Motive, String, Bluff and Diplomacy, and Wind, Diplomacy, and Handle Animal. Which effectively, with Versatile Performance, you can use a Perform skill to override any skill check you normally would make, such as you can use Comedy instead of Intimidate to intimidate somebody. It effectively just means that you could only throw a few skill ranks into some of these and not have to worry about them. Effectively, if you want to be the party face, the Bard is the best at being the party face. Being able to literally take up only 2 of these and getting access to things like Diplomacy, Sense Motive, Bluff, and Intimidate, like right off the bat. But that's up to character discretion if you really wanted to do that. I wouldn't say that you needed to do that, but you could do it if you wanted to. Then there's Well-Versed, which effectively just means a Bard gains a bonus against Bardic performances, Sonic, and language-dependent effects. Which technically, I think also means things like Dominate Monster and Charm Person. You actually get a bonus against those effects. Lore Master allows you, at 5th level, a Bard can just take 10 on any knowledge check that he has ranks in, which effectively just means that if you really wanted to, you could technically do that any time that you want. If you want to not roll. And once per day, you can just take 20 on a single knowledge check as a standard action. effectively for a bard, you at least want to rank in all of your knowledge skills, because then you could take 10 on them. Jack of all trades, which is your 10th level ability. Effectively, it turns all skills. You can use any skill, even if the skill normally requires him to be trained. And then 16th level, every skill is considered a class skill. And then 19th level, the bard can take 10 on any skill check, even if it is not normally allowed. Do note that the bard's technically capstone is technically deadly performance. And that's the bard. My thoughts on the bard. The bard is probably the most versatile spellcaster. Well, let me rephrase that. It's probably the most versatile in the sense of it can do a lot, but unless, like, you specialize, you can't really do a whole lot. And it pretty much allows you to do pretty much anything. I'm just trying to think if there's really anything else that you would really want to do. And I'm actually looking at this, and I think no matter what, you're always going to have a perform skill that overlaps. And by the way, by the time that you get the 5th one, you effectively have covered every single skill that you wanted to with your performances. So effectively, you could, if you wanted to, have 5 of your skills just end performances, and you can do any of these things with your performance skills. For versatile performance, I would say the best ones are dance and any of the ones that give you sense motive. Because all of those are non-charisma based skills automatically. So that just pretty much allows you to do those by using your charisma rather than using your dex or your wisdom for those things. So those are my opinions on those. They're not always the best, because all the other ones are technically class skill or technically charisma skills. Bluff, disguise, intimidate, and diplomacy are all, and handle animal are all charisma based skills. But sense motive, acrobatics, and flight are not charisma based skills, and this effectively allows you to swap those for charisma based abilities. I would say that out of all of these, the most powerful ability that a bard can get is Inspire Courage. It effectively just gives you a +4 bonus. It gives you a +1 bonus, and it only uses up 1 round per level, or one round every round to use it. So you can Inspire Courage, and then everybody gets a +1 to attack and damage at first level, and then it just gets stronger as levels go on. So it's always useful. Things like Inspire Greatness. Inspire Greatness is okay if your party is... The smaller your party is, the stronger Inspire Greatness is, because Inspire Greatness could theoretically be more useful than Inspire Courage, just because the bonus to attack rolls and fortitude saves could come up more in handy. As well as there are some spells that are hit dice dependent, but not all spells are hit dice dependent. Some of them are hit point dependent. But yeah, as Bard is, it's a jack of all trades, master of none. You can build a Bard to do just about anything. You can make a melee Bard, you can make a spellcaster Bard, you can make a ranged Bard, you can make a combat maneuver Bard. Wouldn't recommend the combat maneuver one, just because it's really hard to get a combat maneuver Bard really up and running. There are ways to do it. Bard actually has the best weapon for like 2 of the combat maneuvers in the game, so it's actually not that bad. So you could do that if you really wanted to. But that's pretty much Bard. And I haven't played a Bard much either, so I don't really know how effective all of this is in combat. And a lot of and I'll say this, a lot of the abilities that characters get are going to be situational and may not be the greatest option for specific campaigns that you're running. This is just anything in general. But I will always say this, your character should always have something else to potentially do if they are non martial, they should have something else to bring to the table that is not just, I hit things, unless that is like you're the only one doing that. But then you're going to get probably really bored when you're going to get to the point where there's no combat, which is like you're playing barbarian or fighter, or really barbarian or fighter. And it's not really a problem. But we'll go ahead and continue on. We'll go to cleric. Cleric! More than capable of upholding the honor of their deities in battle, clerics often prove stalwart and capable combatants. Their true strength relies on their capability to draw upon the power of their deities, whether to increase their own or their allies' prowess in battle, to vex their foes with divine magic, or to lend healing to companions in need. As their powers are influenced by their faith, all clerics must focus their worship upon a divine source. While the vast majority of clerics revere a specific deity, a small number have dedicated themselves to a divine concept worthy of devotion, such as battle, death, justice, or knowledge, free of a deific abstraction. Work with your GM if you prefer this path to selecting a specific deity. Do note that generally, if you are playing in a campaign setting such as Golarion, your clerics must choose a deity. There is no option to not pick a deity. Clerics do. This is when alignment gets really restrictive. A cleric's alignment must be within one step of her deities along either the law-chaos axis or the good-evil axis, which effectively means if your god is lawful good, you can be lawful good, lawful neutral, or neutral good. You cannot be true neutral. Or, of course, chaotic evil or lawful evil or any of those other alignments. The ones that are generally the most... the alignment that has the most options is usually a true neutral deity, because you can be neutral good, true neutral, neutral evil, chaotic neutral, or lawful neutral. With the other neutral ones usually giving you more options to play, not necessarily being the best. Clerics have a D8 hit die, probably normal. We've seen that already. Spell ranks is 2+ intelligence modifier. They also get all these skills. They actually get arcane history, nobility, planes, and religion, which is like the main ones that we'll look into when we get to skills. We probably won't get to skills this stream. Actually, we might, because I can actually discuss all of this a lot later. Weapons and armor proficiencies. Clerics are proficient with all simple weapons, light armor, medium armor, and shields, except tower shields. Clerics are also proficient with a favored weapon of their deity. All deities provide a favored weapon. Not all weapons are simple weapons, and not all deities are really useful because if you're looking for like a weapon to use. Many deities give very different weapons, and usually a cleric will generally wield another character's their favorite deity's weapon, such as Saren Ray, which is Pathfinder 1st Edition, is where I think in Critical Role she's called something else. I actually don't know what she's called in Critical Role, but Saren Ray, her favorite weapon is the scimitar, and this character, which is I believe it's Kaya, her deity is Saren Ray. She worships Saren Ray, and that is the Dawnflower. Alrighty. Aura! A cleric of a chaotic, evil, good, or lawful deity has a particularly powerful aura corresponding to the deity's alignment. See Detect Evil spell for details. Effectively, a cleric has a lawful, good, evil, or chaotic, depending on which of the alignments that their deity is. It's actually based off their deity's alignment, not based off of their alignment. A cleric casts divine spells, which are drawn from the cleric spell list presented in Chapter 10. Her alignment, however, may restrict her from casting certain spells opposed to her moral or ethical beliefs. See Chaotic, Evil, Good, and Lawful Spells on page 41. A cleric must choose and prepare spells in advance. Or cast a spell, a cleric must have a wisdom score equal to 10 plus the spell level. Cleric uses wisdom for spells, so this is not new. This is all not new information, and also this is not new information. Cleric, you may be wondering what this +1 means. This technically means that the cleric gets domain spells, effectively. So they get 4 + 1 domain spell slot. Yeah, represents the domain spell slot. Clerics are also a a 3/4 BAB class, so they get up to 15 plus 10 plus 5. They're good at fort, good at will. They're bad at reflex. They get aura, channel energy, domains, and orisons. Do note we haven't gone to channel energy, domains, or orisons yet. I don't believe. No, we have not. We will get to those in the next page. This is how many 0-level spell or orisons they can cast. Orisons are effectively cantrips. They're just different name for same thing. Clerics meditate or pray for their spells. These clerics must choose a time which she spends 1 hour each day in quiet contemplation or supplication to grant her daily allotment of spells. Cleric may prepare or cast any spells on the cleric spell list, provided that she can cast spells of the level, but she must choose which spells to prepare during the daily meditation. Channel energy. It's a supernatural ability, which means that you can effectively use it almost in any situation. Regardless of alignment, any cleric can release a wave of energy by channeling the power of their faith through her holy or unholy symbol. This energy can be used to cause or heal damage depending on the type of energy channel for the creatures targeted. Good clerics or clerics that worship a good deity channel positive energies, which heals living, damages undead. An evil cleric or one who worships an evil deity channels negative energy and can choose to deal damage to living creatures or to heal undead creatures. And a neutral cleric who worships a neutral deity or one who is devoted to a particular deity must choose whether she channels positive or negative energy. Once this choice is made, it cannot be reversed. The decision also determines whether the cleric casts spontaneous cure or inflicts spells. If you channel positive energy, you can spontaneously cast cure spells. If you channel negative energy, you can spontaneously cast inflict spells. Channel energy causes a burst that affects all creatures of one type, either undead or living, within a 30-foot radius, and it heals 1d6 points plus 1d6 every 2 cleric levels, which effectively means that you have to, unlike the normal rule where you would half and round down, this is you half and round up. Usually goes up to a maximum of 10d6. Cleric's also one of the few classes that don't have a capstone, but they do get access to 4th level spells. A cleric can also use this 3 plus her charisma modifier per day, and it's also the channel energy is also based off her charisma modifier instead of her wisdom modifier. Don't ask me why it's that way. It's that way because of weird things that happened back in 3.5. This is a 3.5 holdover. I might actually homebrew some of these things to where instead of it being charisma, I might do it wisdom, but that's just me. We will go over my thoughts on cleric, and we will likely be ending stream once we're done with a few more of these things. Domains, a cleric deity influences or alignment, which magic she can perform, her values, and how others see her. Cleric chooses 2 domains from among those belonging to her deity. Cleric can select an alignment domain, chaos, evil, good, or law, only if her alignment matches that domain. If a cleric is not devoted to a particular deity, she still selects 2 domains to represent her spiritual inclination ability. The restriction on alignment domain still applies. Each domain grants a number of domain powers depending upon this level of the cleric, as well as the number of bonus spells. The cleric gains 1 domain spell slot for each level of cleric spell she can cast first on up, and each day you can prepare one of the spells from her 2 domains in that slot. Orisons are just 0-level spells. Spontaneous casting. I've already went over what spontaneous casting does. A good cleric who channels stored spell energy into healing. Cleric can lose any prepared spell that is an orison or domain that is not an orison or domain spell in order to cast any cure spell of the same spell level or lower. And evil does the same thing for inflict. And a neutral one needs to pick which one. It cannot be reversed. Chaotic, evil, good, and lawful spells. A cleric can't cast spells in alignment opposed to her own or her deities if she has one. Spells associated with particular alignments are indicated by the chaotic, evil, good, and lawful description in the spell's description. So effectively, a good aligned cleric cannot cast evil spells. A lawful aligned cleric cannot cast chaotic spells, and so forth. Bonus languages. A cleric's bonus language options include Celestial, Abyssal, and Infernal, the languages of good, chaotic, evil, and lawful evil outsiders, respectively. These choices are in addition to the bonus languages available for her character because of her race. So effectively, a cleric can cast... A cleric, if you were like an elf and you couldn't pick Celestial, Abyssal, or Infernal, you can now pick those as your bonus languages. X-clerics... There are X classes. Barbarians, Paladins, Clerics, and Druids are the only classes that have X variations. Effectively, a X version of that class loses access to all spells and class features associated with that class, except for armor proficiencies, shield proficiencies, and proficiency with specific weapons. She cannot therefore gain levels as a cleric or the god until she atones for her deeds. See the atonement spell description. Domains! You get to pick 2 of these, and a lot of these grant powers. I'm not going to go over every single domain, but each domain is associated with 1 or 2 or maybe 3 deities, depending on what they are, or multiple deities. And many of these are probably not the best options. It really depends on campaign which ones would actually be the best options or best picks for you. Such as spells and abilities and all that other stuff. Many of these, like, there are like things like fire, and here are the gods for all of that. You can technically look all this up on Archives of Nethys, but this is effectively the cleric. Many of the planar domains, which is earth, fire, air, and water, they all give usually a resistance to the associated energy type, as well as an ability that it does damage. That's a range attack that does damage. Things like destruction are a bit different. They do other things. And cleric is generally just a very versatile class. You can pretty much do just about anything with. Do note that cleric is one of those classes that is very versatile, and you can build 2 clerics completely differently from each other. The 2 domains is probably different from what you're used to in Cleric 5th edition, where clerics only get 1 domain, and then they get bonus stuffs based off of that domain. This one, they get 2 domains, and they get all the abilities from both domains, as well as some other abilities associated with that domain. Some domains are going to probably be more appropriate for specific games, such as, of course, like nature or plant domain. Actually, plant domain isn't really that bad, but plant domain is only really useful if, like, you're going up against specific things. Sun domain is really only useful for going up against undead. And that's the only real issue with sun domain, is that its first level ability is kind of useless if you don't have any undead, or you're not going up against any undead, although undead are pretty common. So picking sun domain is not really that much of an issue. There's the travel domain, the strength domain, and all that other stuff. Weather domain, and all that. But that's pretty much it. Some domains also give you access to some extra skills, like trickery gives you bluff, disguise, and stealth, and I think knowledge in here. Knowledge, I think, gives you access to all. Oh, protection actually grants you a +1 resistance bonus on saving throws. Which effectively means you could technically negate your requirement for a Cloak of Resistance if you really wanted to. Let me see here. As that lurks deep in your heart, and you can unleash it. Let me see her. I know the knowledge domain is it. There it is. You are a scholar and sage of legends. In addition, you treat all knowledge skills as class skills. So effectively, if you wanted to put more points into intelligence, you could do that if you wanted to. Clerics aren't really known for their intelligence. They're just not. So knowledge skills isn't probably something that you're going to probably have a lot of access to. Let's see here. Druid! But we'll get to... Actually, not Druid yet. Let me go ahead and mention... Cleric is one class that I have played a little bit of, but I haven't really played a whole lot of Druid, or not Druid, a lot of Cleric. I don't know how good some of these abilities are. Some of them are really good, some of them aren't. Some of them have really good spells, but the only issue is that you can only cast these spells once per day. And if you don't pick that spell, then you can't use it that day, even though it would be a very useful spell to have. But it's up to you on if you think that something looks cool and all that, and ask your GM and discuss with your GM on things that you're likely to come up in a campaign. Or if you are a GM, take note of what your players are taking. If they're playing a cleric and they pick something like Trickery Domain, or they pick something like weather domain. Well, not weather domain. If they pick class features that are appropriate and could come in handy, those are things you should be looking out for. I would say Cleric is a very strong class just because it's a class that gets up to 9th level spells. 9th level spells are very powerful. It's a very strong class. And a class that I would recommend any player who wishes to, like, be somewhat of a support character that doesn't also want to be support, because like, channel energy is great for healing. It really is. It's good. It's a good group heal. It's best to probably not use channel energy when more than 2 people aren't hurt, because you only have a limited number of those per day, but you do get a lot more healing as Cleric in Pathfinder 1st Edition, especially if you pick that option. You could just not pick that option and have instead channel negative energy, which is not an issue either. Excuse me. Now, we'll go ahead and go on to Druid. Druid, I actually have a few more things to keep up. Well, let's go with the role of the Druid. While some Druids might keep to the fringe of battle, allowing companions and summon creatures to fight while they confound foes with the powers of nature, and others transform into deadly beasts and savagely wade into combat, Druids worship personifications of elemental forces, natural powers, and nature itself. Typically, this means devotion to a nature deity, though Druids are just as likely to revere vague spirits, animalistic demigods, or even specific awe-inspiring natural wonders. Druids have to be any neutral, which means you can be neutral, or what I call true neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful neutral, neutral evil, or neutral good. They do have a D8 hit die class. This is their class skills. I'm not going to go over each one. They do get 4+ intelligence modifier, which is new. Druids are not proficient with simple weapons. They're only proficient with a very select few weapons. As you can see, they're proficient with clubs, daggers, darts, quarterstaffs, scimitars, scythes, sickles, short spears, slings, and spears. Not great. They're also proficient with natural attacks they get from any wild shape form they take. Druids are proficient with light armor, light and medium armor, but are prohibited from wearing metal armor, thus may wear only padded leather or hide armor. A druid may also wear wooden armor that has been altered by the ironwood spell so that it functions as though it were steel. Druids are proficient with shields, but must use only those crafted from wood. Druid who wears prohibited armor or uses a prohibited shield is unable to cast druid spells or use any of her supernatural spell like class abilities while doing so, and for 24 hours thereafter. So, effectively, if you accidentally wear metal armor, you get a penalty. A druid casts divine spells, which are drawn from a druid spell list represented in Chapter 10. Her alignment may restrict her from casting certain spells. They're also restricted on what spells they can cast. They're a wisdom-based spellcaster. Everything is for druid, as it is. They also take 1 hour per day to prepare their spells. Unlike a cleric that can spontaneously cast stored spells and the Summon Nature's Ally spell, which is like conjure animals, I believe. Except Summon Nature's Ally goes all the way from 1 to 9. They're limited on the spells they can cast. They have orisons. And this is the Druid. They are a D8 hit die class, which means they also have 3/4 BAB. They're good at fort and reflex, such as the Cleric. Effectively, a Druid could be a Cleric stand-in, but some of the spells in the Druid spell list isn't that great. Nature Spawn, Nature Sense, Orisons, Wild Empathy. Oh, look, Wild Shape. Wild Shape does not work the same way as it does in 5th edition. Resist Nature's Lure, Woodland Stride, and Trackless Step. All those are good things. This looks like exactly like the Cleric spell list. It's fine. Druid's bonus language includes Sylvan, the language of wooden creatures. This choice is in addition to the bonus language available, and a Druid also knows Druidic. Druid learns Druidic. Druid is forbidden from teaching this language to non-Druids. Druidic has its own alphabet. First level, a Druid forms a bond with a nature. The bond can take one of 2 forms. This is a choice close tie to the natural world, granting the Druid one of the following cleric domains: air, animal, earth, fire, plant, water, or weather. Or, instead, well, effectively giving them access to an additional domain spell and a domain spell slot and domain powers. They only get 1. Or they can form an animal companion, which can be any on page 51. I'm not going to go over animal companions, because animal companions are sometimes a pain in the ass to remember. Oh, wait, they're actually on the next page. So we might actually go over some animal companions. That's up to you on if you want an animal companion or not. Animal companions either reach larger size at 4th or 7th level, or they get improvements at 4th or 7th level. Nature sense, they effectively just get a bonus to nature and survival checks. Wild empathy, probably the most underused ability in the game, and in my honest opinion, I would likely change this. But I'm not probably going to. And it's a D20 plus your druid level plus your charisma modifier, and it's technically like diplomacy, except it's not diplomacy. I honestly would have liked it better if they said you may use diplomacy, you may roll diplomacy in order to change the attitude of animals, improve the attitude of animals as you do people, which would have been nice, but didn't work. Trying to deal with magical beasts is just harder because they're magical beasts and not necessarily animals. Woodland stride, effectively your natural terrain does not impede your movement, but magical terrain does. A druid leaves no trail or tracks in the surrounding area. She may leave a trail if she wants to. Druids get a +4 bonus against spell or spell-like abilities against Fae. This may not come up depending on your campaign, but it does come. You do technically get bonus against Blight, Entangle, Spike Growth, and Warpwood, spells that affect target plants or utilize plants. So technically it can come in handy, but if your GM's not using spells like Blight, Entangle, Spike Growth, and Warpwood, you're kind of shit out of luck. And also Blight doesn't work on humanoids. It just doesn't. In Pathfinder 1st Edition, it only works on plants, I believe. Wild Shape. Unlike, you do not get a bonus to temporary hit points when you wild shape. You technically still have the same amount of hit points. A druid at 4th level can turn into a small or medium creature as if using B-Shape 1, getting all the benefits of B-Shape 1. And then at later levels, it increases to like B-Shape 2. It also allows you to turn into an elemental, as well as a plant at later levels. So... And at 12th level, it pretty much maxes out at what you can and can't turn into. So it's not really that bad. Druids become immune to all forms of poison at 9th level. Not bad. Not the greatest thing, but not bad. At 13th level, a druid gains the ability to change her appearance at will, effectively getting alter shape. Not the most useful thing, but could come in handy. Could be something that could be useful if you wish to, like, change your face or anything like that, and effectively give yourself a very good disguise that really can't be overcome by many things. Timeless Body, you effectively no longer take penalties from aging. Any penalties you may have already incurred, however, remain in place, which effectively means you want to get Timeless Body as soon as possible. I don't like that any penalties you may have already incurred, however, remain in place. Bonus does still accrue, and the druids still die of old age when her time is up. Druids effectively just look young forever. A druid who ceases to revere nature, changes to a prohibited alignment, or teaches the druidic language to a non-druid, loses all spells and druid abilities, including her animal companion, but not including weapons or armor and shield proficiencies. She cannot therefore gain levels as druid until she atones, requiring the atonement spell. Animal companions, which is something that is very important. Animal companions also do this. They also have levels and all that other stuff. They also get skill ranks. They also get feats. And all this, and they're only effectively get up to 16 hit die, which isn't great, but they generally start at 2 and have a little bit higher hit die than normal. Animal companions get access to the link ability, which effectively just means that you can... Druid can handle her animal companion as a free action or push it as a move action, even if she doesn't have any ranks in handle animal skill. Druid gains a +4 circumstance bonus on wild empathy checks and handle animal checks made regarding an animal companion. You can also share spells, so any spell that has a target of you can also cast it on your animal companion. Animal companions get evasion, they get ability score increases, devotion, multi-attack, improved evasion. So these are like the main things that you get with an animal companion. Effectively meaning that an animal companion takes less damage with reflex saving throw spells and abilities, such as other things like that. Devotion, which just makes them really hard to enchant, which is really useful, especially for things like dominate and it's a dominate monster is the main thing that I'm thinking of. Although if something's dominating monster, your animal companion, you're kind of screwed because that's a level 9 spell. as well as Hold Monster. Hold Monster does help too because that's an enchantment spell. Animals have very specific skills, and the asterisk just means that they are class skills. And an animal companion with an intelligence of 3 or higher can put ranks into any skills. You can only pick these feats unless your animal companion has a 3 or more intelligence. Then you can pick more feats. Some of these feats are only in the bestiary or in the bestiary. We'd have to take a look at those. Then you can pick animals. You can pick any of these animals. You can choose to increase a in addition to the standard bonuses known on table 3.8. Instead of taking the listed benefit at 4th or 7th level, you can instead choose to increase your companion's dexterity and constitution by 2. Usually you want a bigger animal companion, but that's up to you. This one might actually be more beneficial, especially if you're playing in a campaign where large creatures aren't really going to be able to fit. Which effectively just means that you actually increase their AC by 1 and their hit points by their hit die, which isn't too bad. For some of these, this is somewhat good. For some of these, it's not. It kind of just depends on which one. But you can have pretty much just about any animal as an animal companion. If there's not an animal companion already in here, you can easily use one as an analog for a different one. And some of these animal companions can only work in very specific locations, too. They're not necessarily useful to use in all campaigns, but they are used in some campaigns. Fighter! Well, before we get to the fighter. For the druid, it kind of depends on how you want to play your druid. Depends on if you want to go with the animal companion or the domain. Druids' animal companions can be very strong, given you can pick any of the animal companions, especially any new animal companions that we discuss in later things. I'll probably go over more on like animal companions and what to take, getting their intelligence score and all that other stuff up higher, depending on other things. But there's also a few other things in here that like are very useful and can easily benefit things. Sometimes you want to take a domain instead, which you can. Domains are probably more beneficial if you've already got a lot of people in your group. You probably don't want an animal companion, especially if you're playing in a group that already has like 6 players or more. You really don't want to like overshadow anybody by taking a class feature that gives you more characters to play as in their turn. And animal companions tend to go on their own initiative. But, yeah, we'll go ahead and pause stream for now. I might pause it for a little bit longer than I normally would. But we'll be back and we'll be discussing Fighter once we get back. Alrighty. Welcome back, everyone. I did say that we were going to go after Fighter after this, but I just realized the time, and I have been live for about 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, and I should probably go ahead and end stream. I will be picking this back up at some point. It will not be right now. I will be picking back up Pathfinder 1st Edition. I will likely be making actual videos of these, and maybe giving some pointers and some ideas of what you can build and what you can do later down the line. I just need to go over the core rulebook first, and we've still got quite a bit to go since it's over 578 pages. But we will pick back up with the fighter. We're about halfway done with the classes. Well, we technically just finished 4 classes. We're not really halfway done. I would like to finish fighter, but we're gonna have to wait. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to end stream. But thank you guys for joining me, and I will go ahead and find somebody to raid. Yeah, we'll find somebody to raid. So let's see who is live. Where are we dropping, boys? You know what? Let's drop in on Yuffie. I haven't raided them before, and they're playing Dead Zone Rogue, which looks pretty fun, and I think you guys will enjoy that. So we'll be dropping in on them. So thank you guys for joining me, and I will be back tomorrow, probably with something else that's not Pathfinder related. Maybe we'll come back with Pathfinder something related. I probably will be playing Final Fantasy 14 tomorrow. So because it's raid day, it's a reset day. So yeah. Okay, thank you guys for joining me, and I will see you guys later.